Hello everyone. This is the second part of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Chapter 5, Hero Name and Costume. General Point of View. Batman walked out of the Zeta tube in silent contemplation. The introduction of the young team to Mount Justice was only 2 days away. Batman wondered how that would go. Robin and the others were insistent on having more responsibility heaped on their shoulders. They didn't have an idea of what they were asking for. No, having them act as a Black Ops team would be better. Batman himself would vet their missions, and little by little as they matured, so would the trust to handle more be given. He had no doubt they would step up to the challenge. Having them become a part of the Justice League was currently ill-advised. Especially given the fact that their enemies had grown smarter, more careful, and less visible. They were operating in the open yet hidden. Partnering up and shoring each other's weaknesses. The shipment with Penguin was a cache of altered cocaine that lasted longer and with stronger effects. No trace had been found and the Penguin was hiding. Bruce could direct his considerable resources into finding out his whereabouts, but he decided to take another approach. Waiting. His contemplation moved on to why he was here today. Aden Strong. 17 years old. Alien from another Earth. Earth where all of their struggles were just entertainment to their masses. Batman wasn't sure what to make of that, but he did what he always did, took it in stride, and created countermeasures, in case any of the sensitive information Aden had given them came true. It wasn't a lot though. A few villains, invasions, and the unlikely but terrifying prospect of Superman going murder hobo after losing his wife and unborn child. Batman's hand clenched and he stopped in place. He wouldn't let that happen. Bruce would sooner break his oath to never kill, to put the Joker down rather than see his best friend go through grief like that. That would also be the day that he would have to give up the cowl. Back to the young boy, Batman knew he didn't mean any harm. He could see a lot of loneliness in his eyes, but Aden was bravely holding on strong. That was enough for Batman to give him a chance. Bruce knew that treating him with suspicion would only distance him, and that could turn bad. The information that Aden contained was dangerous in the wrong hands, but what made Batman cast his vote into keeping the boy closer was his powers. Batman had seen it, the white eyes that had stared at him during that night were filled with so much power. Superman was called a god by some, but what Bruce saw that day was more. Bruce reached the training room and found Red Tornado hovering before Aden, who was cross-legged on a mat. His hands were outstretched, cupped in front of him. A swirl of air rolling between the palms, in the form of a ball. Am I interrupting something? Red Tornado turned to look at him. Batman. He nodded, then continued, Number. We were just getting finished for the day. He said and left the room. Batman turned his gaze to Aden and found him scrunching his eyebrows in the effort. The ball of air swirled around his body as he simultaneously jumped. The ball stabilized below him, connected to his body by one leg as the other was crossed over it. The ball then started rolling around as Aden rode above it around the room. Batman's eyebrows rose up at the casual display of high-level air manipulation. Yes, I did it. He excitedly said before spotting Batman and directing the ball to him. The air ball disappeared and Aden landed on the ground gracefully. You've gotten better. Batman observed. Aden nodded his head in a little pride. Yeah. I have been practicing a lot this past week. Red Tornado has also taught me some awesome moves. It was also true. Even the level of his proficiency in the air element had gone up. Air element, practitioner. Locked. Locked. He wanted to get the mastery to expert before he tried unlocking any of its sub-branches. Aden had gotten to know how the proficiency ranking went. It was beginner, practitioner, expert, master, grandmaster. He had a feeling that he was nearing expert, and that was because of all the air manipulation exercises he had done. He had also asked Red Tornado to get him a book on the basics of Ba Gua Zhang. That martial art shared a lot of similarities with air bending, and once Red Tornado had gotten him the book, his skill in air bending had shot up. That's commendable. Follow me, Batman said after a while. Aden's point of view. I followed after the Dark Knight, taking the chance to study him some more. He walked with natural grace, like a predator ready to pounce and attack. With my improvements in bending, my intellect and observational skills seemed to improve a little as well. Airbending involved a lot of meditation, and maybe that had given me some more benefits. We made it to the meeting hall, and right there on the table was a briefcase carrying something I had been looking forward to the entire week. I looked back at the Dark Knight and asked, "Is that what I think it is?" He nodded, and I jumped to study it. The briefcase opened up to reveal, "This is not what I drew when you asked me to make a sketch of my super suit." I told him, a little dissatisfied. "Your costume idea was impractical for your powers. Currently, you don't have access to the full scope of your abilities, as you yourself told me. This suit will be more appropriate for the time being." I took a minute to reason it out and had to nod at what he was saying. My design was a little too ambitious. It was too outstanding in its magnificence. No cap. My design had a white hood, a dark blue sleeveless tunic that ran from my neck attached to the hood, down to between my knees, and a white pair of pants that were shoved into black boots. There were white bands along my open arms, 2 on both biceps and 1 above the gloves covering my palm and wrists. To top it off, on the chest was an emblem with a modernized take on the symbols of the 4 elements. Instead of that visual orgasm of a super suit, Batman had commissioned something else entirely. For starters, it was the same type of style as Kid Flash's costume. The difference was that most of the suit was black with white accents on the ribs. An emblem of air was in the middle of the chest, represented by a swirling circle. For a mask, it was styled akin to Kyle Rayner's, but instead of a domino mask, a visor was in place. The whole suit looked unique, if a bit average. The thing I disliked most about it was the emblem for air on the chest. It felt like I would undermine myself if I accepted it. I was the avatar, for crying out loud, not an average airbender. What would villains think when they saw me? It was like an electric shock went through me as I turned to the Dark Knight. "You want them to underestimate me, don't you?" It all made perfect sense. After seeing the upper levels of my power, Bruce had probably come up with this ruse. To put me in a costume that, by all accounts, wasn't a clear representation of what I could actually do given enough time. After supervillains get used to me being an airbender, bam! I hit them with fire or water or earth. Any countermeasures to beat me in the future would be useless, because my powers would grow and grow and grow past them all. I looked at Batman in a new light. "Have you decided on a name for yourself?" Batman's voice cut through my thoughts. I looked at the emblem on my new suit. Initially, I wouldn't have accepted any other name but Avatar. Looking at it from a different perspective, I didn't deserve that name yet. Batman had a point in his actions, and if there was one thing I knew about him, he never did anything without taking every single detail into account. I would trust his judgment. Maelstrom. For now, call me Maelstrom. Elsewhere. A row of screens was placed before a hidden figure. The shipment was compromised. The hidden figure said, "All within expectations." One of the figures on the screen spoke. "I agree. If the plan had worked out, we would have found ourselves in partnership with a very shrewd man." Another intoned. A deeper voice than the previous 2 supplied its own thoughts. "With the Penguin currently indisposed, we can place our very own tool to gain us more footing in Gotham." Another voice sighed. "Batman has always moved to crush any new, ambitious forces in Gotham. He seeks to maintain the current delicate balance." The deep voice from before snorted. "He is someone who strikes from the shadows and darkness. Our methods have evolved to work in the light. We need no fear." A female voice was the next to speak. "Our whole purpose is for humankind to be unhindered in its growth. Every step we take has been for that sole purpose, and anyone who steps in our way will be made to see the light." With that, no one else spoke and the screens went static. Lex Luthor stapled his fingers together as he thought. Not one of them asked how the plan failed. More for me then, he said to himself. On another screen was an obscured image of a floating boy with the 4 elements surrounding his form. The elements had messed with the picture, but the one thing they failed to hide was the glowing eyes. You're not a metahuman, are you? You're something more, Lex said to the picture. Chapter 6, Meeting the Team. Aden Strong. I turned up the volume and bopped my head as the bass made the room shake. I powdered my hands and stretched my whole body. The training room in Mount Justice was huge, most definitely to allow enough space for every league member to work out at the same time. Not that such a thing would happen. In fact, I doubt most of them had even used it. Somehow I couldn't see Red Tornado or Captain Atom pushing weight and asking each other, "Do you even lift, bro?" Jokes aside, some of the weights went up to 5,000 tons. It was crazy that even the racks supported a few dumbbells like that. Then again, this world had some crazy stuff. Away from the superhero business, the normal everyday appliances that I had seen were futuristic back in my world. After 5 minutes of stretching, I looked at the obstacle course ahead of me. Turns out that the team had a budget set aside for us by the league. I used the excuse of training the team to react faster to danger, for Red Tornado to agree to construct the obstacle course. That same afternoon, yesterday, Green Lantern had come by, and voila, a compact 10-challenge obstacle course. The course was filled with some of the hardest obstacles ever cleared. I was dressed in a black vest and a pair of gym pants. The first challenge was the rolling log. I jumped a little in place to loosen my muscles, timed myself, and then began. 2 hours later. I looked myself over in the mirror and nodded. The visor part of my mask came down, hiding my features. I didn't look like me, which I guess was the point. Batman had advised me to lose the taper fade, and after a lot of back and forth, he finally gave up, though I could feel his disapproval every time we spoke. My relationship with both him and Red Tornado had also gone into a comfortable place. The android didn't speak much, but he was always helpful. Batman's attitude was cool if you were an antisocial guy like me. And today I would meet the rest of my future team. I just hoped that things would go well. I left my room and found Red Tornado already waiting for me in the hall. "Follow me," he said, and I nodded. We used a Zeta tube, and when I opened my eyes, I found myself in a massive room. The Hall of Justice. Specifically, the library, judging from all the bookshelves on the sides. Martian Manhunter was the only one around, along with several reporters watching us from behind a glass panel, located in another room. Flashes of cameras hit us and I gulped in nervousness at the step I was about to make. Today was the day. My introduction to the life of capes. Both heroes and villains. Maelstrom. Welcome to the Hall of Justice, Martian Manhunter told me while smiling softly. I returned the smile. Thank you. It's good to be here. Actually, where are the rest? I asked. They're just arriving. Excuse me, Manhunter said and left. A brief silence settled upon me and Tornado. Something I had gotten used to by now. To calm down my nerves, I took the chance to review my progress over the past 2 days. Air Mastery Level, Expert. Locked. Locked. My air mastery had gone up to Expert. It might seem fast, but I had really tried my best to bridge the gap between the sidekicks and me. They had me beat in experience and knowledge, so I had to learn faster. In the meantime, I would let my strength carry me over. Fortunately, I already knew some of the villains we would face, and I had even tried to create counters to some of them. The wide doors to the library opened and in entered 8 new individuals. Aquaman and Aqualad, Flash and Kid Flash, Green Arrow and Speedy, and lastly Batman and the Boy Wonder, Robin. Robin did a spit take as his eyes landed on me. I waved a hand awkwardly. Hi. You have got to be kidding me. You? Robin swerved his head to stare at his mentor. You never said anything about. He waved his hand at me. The others studied me and Kid Flash whooshed over. Who's the new guy? He studied me from a few sides before running back to the rest of the group. I like his costume. Team Meet Maelstrom, Red Tornado's protege. I stepped forward, calming my wildly beating heart. I wanted to fanboy so much right now, but as my dad always told me, first impressions are very important. Hello everybody. As Batman said, I'm Maelstrom. Happy to meet you. I hope we all get along and become friends. Robin entered into a staring match with Batman before sighing and conceding. He stepped up and offered a hand. Nice to meet you. Officially. Just know I'll get you back for that blow. I smiled at the olive branch. Not the least bit intimidated by his promise. I grasped his hand and shook it. Hey man, I'm Kid Flash. Great to meet you, so what are your powers exactly? Kid Flash asked. Aerokinesis. I answered, but by the slight narrowing of Robin's eyes, I knew I would soon face some questions from him. Wow. The kid was just as intense as Batman when he glared. Cool. Can you make tornadoes like Red Tornado? Kid Flash went on. I smirked. You'll soon find out. My name is Aqualad. Nice to meet you. Aqualad was a calm individual, but from the sincerity in his eyes, I could tell he was the one to welcome me completely without any reservations. I turned my attention to the last sidekick in the room. Speedy didn't spare me a glance as he approached the League members who had separated themselves to discuss something. Quick debrief to discuss the coincidence of 4 ice villains attacking the same day. We won't be long. Batman announced. The light to access the Zeta tube ran over him and the other mentors. I watched Speedy's back as my jaw clenched at the silent dismissal. That's Speedy. He's like that with strangers. Don't worry, he'll come around soon. Robin told me, but by the look on my face, he could see I didn't believe him in the slightest. He shrugged. What is this? Speedy's voice cut through harshly. The older members of the League turned to stare at him. Green Arrow made to talk. Speedy. Speedy's face scrunched up in anger. Number. No more excuses. You promised us a real look inside. Not a glorified backstage pass. You need to be patient. It will happen on its own time. Green Arrow opened his mouth and made things worse. What I need is for someone to take me seriously. Speedy rebutted, turning to the others. This is never going to end. They're always going to treat us like sidekicks, not equals. Let us try to calm down and talk this out, Speedy. I'm sure we can reach. Speedy laughed at Aqualad's words. I bet you don't even know that this is not the real headquarters. The real headquarters is located in space. Batman looked at Green Arrow in disapproval. I thought we could make an exception. The glare didn't end. In fact, it grew in intensity. Apparently not. I didn't know what to think, but from the little I had seen, I could tell that Speedy had a few issues to work through. I didn't remember the whole Young Justice plot, but there was something about him. If you can't treat me like a partner, then I'm done. He finished his rant by throwing his hat on the floor and walking off. With that, the whole room filled up with tension. I really didn't feel like being in the room, and this was the perfect time to talk to John. I walked over close to them. Can I talk to you for a second, John? Batman nodded to him. I had already told the Dark Knight what I wanted to ask John, and he'd given his approval. We went off to a private office attached to the library, leaving behind the sidekicks who looked lost in thought. What did you need, Maelstrom? I wrung my wrists, suddenly unsure of myself. Look. You know my situation. And I'm worried that another telepath, one aligned with the "let's take over the world" thing, might just as easily read my mind as you can. John nodded his head and hummed. You want to know if there is a way you can shield your mind from telepaths? Exactly. He was silent for only a few seconds. Very well. I know of a few exercises we can do to strengthen your mind. Fortunately, I am also teaching GAN, so it will be easy to include you in the already set schedule. Cool. Cool. When will we start? Soon. I resisted grumbling, mostly because I was asking for his help. Soon wasn't really an answer, and I felt uncomfortable knowing that Simon, a supervillain telepath, was in my future. John's earpiece beeped and he turned to me. League emergency. Take care, Maelstrom. He phased through the walls and was gone. I sighed and left the room. Project Cadmus? Aquilad's voice rang out as I came within earshot. Let's find out. Robin perked up and started typing on a computer. What's up, guys? I asked, but none of them answered me, too engrossed in the screen. Access denied. Robin scoffed. Wanna bet? I came up close to them and marveled at his hacking skills. Wow. You're good. I told him. Thanks, but this is easy. Same system as the Bat Cave. Access granted. Project Cadmus. It's a lab here in DC. But if Batman's suspicious of it, maybe we should check it out. Robin reasoned. Aquilad's face lit up. Solve their case before they do. It would be poetic justice. Wait. Sorry guys, but if I'm getting you right, you want to go to DC and investigate a lab that the Batman, emphasis on the, is suspicious of, all the while directly going against their order to stay put? They looked at each other and turned to me. Yes. The word came out in unison. Why? You're gonna tell on us, new guy? Kid Flash asked me mockingly. I didn't really mind, having understood his personality. A smile worked its way onto my face. Not at all. In fact, count me in. Chapter 7, Cadmus. Aden's point of view. We took a Zeta tube to the area in the city where Cadmus was located. Coming out of the phone booth, we spotted the smoke rising over a few buildings a block away, and Kid Flash took off in that direction. Boy Wonder shot a cable to the building in front of us and pulled on it. He landed on the roof and took off with Aqualad and me following behind. Aqualad's Atlantean physique, which was levels higher than mine by the way, helped him gather momentum from his sprint and jump onto a window close to the roof of the two-story building. Then he pulled himself over. Not one to get shown up, I used the wind to increase my speed and copied Aang's move on the walls of Ba Sing Se. The draft picked up behind me and propelled me forward at high speed. Closing up on the wall of the building, I stepped on it and pushed up. The next step I took was to the window sill, and then I jumped, easily clearing the distance. My leap carried me to somewhere nearer the edge of the building, right behind Aqualad. In front of us was the Cadmus building. Its upper section was in flames. Boy Wonder was just arriving on the ground. I looked at Aqualad and said, "Let's jump." We did, and I manipulated the air to slow us down, finally landing on the ground and catching up to Boy Wonder. No time. The kid has cleared the area of civilians, but something tells me. Robin didn't complete his sentence as a section on the second floor blew up, sending 2 scientists falling to the ground. Kid Flash luckily superspeed toward them and saved them, barely placing them on the roof of the building. Unfortunately, the speedster lost traction and had to hang from the window. We need a plan, Aqualad began before looking around and finding out that the Boy Wonder had disappeared. He's up ahead. Come on, I have an idea. I told Aqualad and started sprinting forwards. The wind carried my body as I moved as fast as a speeding car. I had Aqualad's bounding steps behind me, and looking on ahead, noticed that Robin had already arrived at Kid Flash's position. He helped him up and they entered the building. Meanwhile, I took a running jump, cleared a distance of 20 meters, and stepped on the ladder of the fire truck on the scene. I distantly heard the firemen shouting in surprise. I pushed off the vehicle, leaving behind a sudden whoosh of air behind me. My trajectory carried me to the roof of the building. The 2 scientists stepped back in fear. I spared them a look at their wariness before I realized something. I was still unknown, so they didn't know if I was a hero or a villain. Fear was understandable. Who? One of them started before I pointed at Aqualad, who was coming up, riding on water. Aqualad's going to get you down. I then ignored them and focused on my task. Okay, here goes nothing. I focused and pulled out all the air from the room burning below me. A cloud of smoke flew out of the room, leaving behind a vacuum, and nothing else but blackened furniture. Meanwhile, the two scientists reached the ground safely, due to Aqualad, who then controlled the water to rise up and form a platform for us to step on. Let's go to the others. I nodded and we went down, stopping and entering the room next to the one burning previously. Aqualad did not look happy as he said sarcastically, "Appreciate the help." Robin spared an amused glance at us. "Nice going. You too, Maelstrom." I nodded and started to look around. Aqualad did the same and we all heard the ding of an elevator from the hallway through the open door. We went on guard and ran out to the hall. What was that? I asked, catching a glimpse of something before the elevator doors closed. No idea, but a 2-story building like this shouldn't have a high-speed express elevator. Boy Wonder told us while swiping at the watch displayed holograms on his wrist. I whistled in appreciation. Okay, I know it's not the time, but could Batman get me something like that if I asked nicely? The Boy Wonder looked at me and smiled. Cool, isn't it? I nodded while Wally snorted. Keep dreaming. I tried to ask nicely, but all I got was the patented glare. Guys, focus. Aqualad said while going to the elevator and pulling the doors apart. Robin whistled. So that's why they need the express elevator. Just as I had expected, the elevator went down many floors judging by the shaft. Now what? I asked. Despite our powers, or in Robin's case skills and gadgets, I don't think we should go down there without informing the League first. This doesn't seem like your average supervillain scheme to me. Kid Flash patted me on the shoulder. I get it, man. You're scared. But this is what comes with being a hero. Wow, kid, that was almost inspiring. Robin threw a jab at him. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Robin ignored him and turned to me. If we contacted the League, they would just tell us to fall back, and by then, it might be too late. Aqualad nodded. I believe it would be prudent to go forward. As humans would say, it is easier to beg forgiveness than to seek permission. Wow. I was stumped by their recklessness, but in the end, I nodded. Robin wordlessly shot his grapple gun. The hook dug into the ceiling above us and he jumped, hanging from the cable as he went down. Next up was Aqualad. Kid Flash followed after them while smirking at me. Guess you're last, he said, saluting. I rolled my eyes, though he couldn't see it from my visor. I pulled on the cable to make sure it was stable before biting the bullet and sliding down along it. Luckily, I had my gloves on, so friction wasn't a problem. I pushed myself to the ledge of the floor where the rope ended just as Robin hacked the elevator doors. Aqualad opened them and we stepped through. We walked in to find ourselves in a huge room lined with strange compartments on the side. Welcome to Project Cadmus. Guys, this place gives me the creeps. We should. Kid Flash used his super speed and pulled ahead of us. Be careful. I finished lamely. Damn it. Aqualad said as we ran forward. Kid Flash slipped after running into huge gray creatures and losing balance. I sent a blast of wind that pushed him away from being turned to mincemeat by a xenomorph. Thanks, he said once they made it past. The huge creatures had tiny other creatures on their shoulders. They spotted us, but ignored our existence. My heart was hammering inside my chest. It's one thing to see such things on TV and another to stand close to them. Okay, that happened. Still don't want to call in the League? Not yet. I need to find out what's going on here. Robin insisted, and I knew the others would back him up. I swallowed my objections for the second time as we proceeded through the hallways to come up on 2 huge double doors. That looks interesting, Kid Flash said. I agree, Aqualad added while Robin broke through the security measures and the chamber doors opened. Inside, more genomorphs were put into glass casings. Electric energy ran through their forms as Kid Flash told us of his suspicions that the reason Cadmus was off the grid was that they were using genomorphs to produce energy. At that point, I tuned them out knowing that trouble was about to arrive. 2 minutes later, Guardian and a number of combat genomorphs entered the room. Don't move. Wait, Robin? Kid Flash? Aqualad? Guardian looked caught off guard by our presence. While they were talking, I prepared myself, ready to spring into motion when Guardian and the genomorphs inevitably attacked. This would be my first real battle and my nerves were killing me. I breathed out calmly while stepping away from the others to avoid friendly fire. Guardian clutched his head in disorientation once he figured out something was wrong. The horns of the genomorph on his shoulder glowed red and I took that as my cue. Take them down hard. In your dreams, buddy. A blast of air escaped my hands, knocking the genomorphs back. Guardian rolled to the side and escaped the attack. Robin threw a smoke pellet on the ground and I used my air to spread it out faster, obscuring our position. The 4 genomorphs jumped through the air. I took the chance while they were suspended and let loose a point-blank air bomb. This was a skill I had come up with while practicing, where I condensed as much wind as I could before releasing it in one burst. It sent out a shock wave of air that slammed 2 of the genomorphs to the walls of the room while sweeping the smoke away. Holy crap. The new guy has moved. Focus, kid. Aqualad shouted while dodging Guardian's attacks. I watched as Kid Flash took one of the genomorphs out, leaving one that was headed for Aqualad. Birdarangs came flying from above and took it out. Courtesy of Robin. With all the genomorphs taken out, that left only Guardian, and boy was he powerful. Guardian threw out blows that Aqualad struggled to defend against. More genomorphs entered the room and I turned my attention away from Aqualad. Hey, kid. I need a distraction. Sure. Kid Flash replied and blitzed forward in zigzags. In the same motion it took him to run, I twisted and bent, and harsh winds covered my form before I completed the set of motions and stepped forward. Out of the way, kid. Kid Flash hopped on a wall and ran up to clutch one of the beams above us. My hands shot forward and a massive cone of wind slammed onto the new genomorphs. The blast pushed them all away and back out into the hallway. Aqualad was also done with Guardian after electrocuting him, so we left the room and ran to the elevator which Robin had just finished hacking into. Way to be a team player, Rob. Kid Flash said to the boy wonders, looking miffed. Although that statement was true in most cases, I disagreed with the current situation. If Robin hadn't gone ahead, we would still be stuck fighting the genomorphs. I thought you guys were right behind me, he answered. The elevator doors opened wide and we entered. Aqualad barely made it as he came rolling in, a group of genomorphs following behind him. Luckily, the elevator closed and started going down. Why are we heading down? I asked Robin. Dude, out is up. You don't get it. Project KR is down on sublevel 52. Robin responded. Perhaps we should contact the League, this is getting out of control. No, we started this. Let's finish it. Robin said convincingly. This time I didn't hide my sigh. Chapter 8, Project KR. Aden's point of view. The elevator opened up to reveal a room built inside an underground cavern. The room itself emptied into 2 ominous hallways. Okay, which should we pick? Bizarre-looking hallway 1 or bizarre-looking hallway 2? I would say neither. In fact, I'm an advocate for, let's get the hell out of here and call in the big guns. My words had an effect on them, but they still weren't willing to turn back. Maybe Maelstrom is right. That said, we've already come this far. Might as well just continue. I threw my hands up. I give up. You've been in this game longer than I have, so what the hell? Let's continue on and hope we live to tell the tale. That's more like it. Robin responded to me. But before he could add anything else, a xenomorph dressed in white spotted us. Halt! The alien took control of a few metal barrels and telekinetically threw them at us. My hands snaked out and a gale of wind knocked the projectiles away. We then started running towards the second hallway. I knew that they were coming for us and I didn't feel comfortable being confined in such a place with no way out. We made a turn and saw a woman get knocked down by Kid Flash, who was moving at high speeds. The massive door to Project KR was ahead of us, about to close, but we all luckily made it through as it shut behind us, trapping us in the room with Superman's clone. So far I had been following the plot, but being in that situation, about to face a Kryptonian hybrid who could smash me to a pulp, made me realize just how dumb I was. I had neglected to give Batman information regarding the Young Justice universe because I knew how altering events could lead to worse shit, but following the plot so closely had been a dumb mistake. One I was about to pay for. While I was lost in my thoughts, Robin and the others decided to free Superboy. My eyes widened. No, wait. Robin pressed a key and the glass case opened with an exhale of air. Damn it, I said, earning looks of confusion from the others. We don't know if they've programmed him to attack intruders as they did with Guardian. I saw realization fall onto their faces. Get us out of here, Robin. Aqualad shouted in alarm as his water bearers appeared in his hands. Kid Flash turned to me angrily. Why didn't you say anything? I looked at him incredulously. Are you kidding me? I told you guys to contact the League. There are no signals down here. Aqualad interjected. Let's try talking first. It's Superman's son. Here's to hoping he shares the big guy's fluffy personality. Robin's words were met with an angry scowl from the clone. Or not. Look out! I shouted to Aqualad, pushing him away with a gale of wind. Superboy slammed a fist down on Aqualad's previous location and rounded up on the person closest to him, which happened to be me. I ducked a punch and slammed my palms on his gut. A blast of air carried him off his feet to Aqualad's timely attack on the small of Superboy's back. Superboy flew above me to hit the metal frame of his glass cage. He stood back up looking no worse for wear. Guys, any ideas? I asked, prompting Robin to go forward. His hands were held up. Calm down. We're on your side. The clone's response was to jump at him with a hand pulled back. Boy Wonder jumped away and in the same motion shot a taser at Superboy, which did absolutely nothing. He pulled on the wires and Robin went flying towards him. Fortunately, Kid Flash swooped in and sped away with Robin before Superboy could hit him. Aqualad. We can't win like this. I told him, my hands were shaking in fear. Aqualad had a determined look on his face as he jumped into the fray. We have to try, he shouted while drawing water from his tattoos to form the hammer from before. He smashed it onto the clone, who blocked it with one hand and pushed it to the side. The hammer disappeared and a shield formed on Aqualad's side to block the devastating punch to the kidneys. Aqualad was pushed back and the clone made to follow, only to divert in his course and come for me as I was gearing up for another attack. My eyes widened as he body-checked me onto the wall. My back hit the hard surface and a breath of air escaped my lungs. I fell onto the ground wheezing and my head ringing. I heard a cry of pain and saw Kid Flash smash into Robin, who had tried to use smoke bombs to distract the clone. The last thing I saw before losing consciousness was Aqualad electrocuting Superboy. Time runs short. You must awaken. You must awaken now. The loud voice rang through my head, making me open my eyes in shock. I strained from my bindings once I saw myself and the others suspended from glass casings, not unlike Superboy's. What happened? Where are we? Let us out now, Kid Flash asked in a panic. I hate to be that guy, but I told you so, I shouted in frustration. Robin had the decency to look away. We're sorry for dragging you into this maelstrom. Aqualad apologized, but I sighed. No, it's not your fault. I wanted to come. Besides, although we could have done some things differently, we've succeeded so far in surviving no worse for wear. Kid Flash was relentless, straining his body against the cuffs. Keeping a speedster locked up was probably very frustrating to them. This is so not cool, man. Just calm down, kid. I doubt you want to piss off the guy who can fry us just by looking, with your nagging. We only sought to help you out. Aqualad began. Yeah, and then you turn on us. Kid Flash added, looking angry. Kid, please. Stay quiet. I believe he was being controlled. Yeah. I noticed that the Genomorpha's horns glowed right before he attacked us. It wasn't intentional. What if I was? Superboy asked tentatively. He can talk. The others looked surprised at that, especially Kid Flash. Yes, he can. Superboy said, looking peeved at Kid's words. Kid Flash was quick to say. Not like I said, it. Then they went on to have a dialogue about how Superboy could leave with us and we would show him the sky, and his father Superman. Oh boy, I really didn't want to see the look of confused anger when Clark learns that he has a son. I tried my best to highlight that particular thing to Batman. To tell him that in one of the alternate Earth, a clone of Superman emerges. A clone that wouldn't turn on him because of his background. I just hope Batman had spoken to him about it. We can show you, Superman. I caught the end of Aqualad's words, and so it seems so did the scientist walking in. Empty promises. They are not going anywhere. Guardian, get the weapon back in its cage. Desmond said. The man instantly rubbed me the wrong way. He's not a weapon, asshole. Just because a knife can stab someone doesn't mean that it's all it can do. Oh, and might you be a new hero? No, you're hanging out with the sidekicks, so the question is, whose protege are you? He asked, making me smirk. Get me down here and I'll show you. Desmond snorted. Children these days. Running their mouths without a care for the consequences. He turned to the lady scientist from before. Start the cloning process. Then to Superboy, he stepped closer. You are not a real boy. You belong to Cadmus. Now get back to your pod. The horns of the Genomorph on Superboy's shoulder glowed and Superboy left. 2 metal rods with 4 pincers each detached from the frame of our cage and impacted my chest. There was a discharge of energy released and I felt my blood being drained from me. Not a minute later, Superboy came charging in. Desmond looked in disbelief as Superboy pushed him out of the way. Robin broke through his cuffs and instantly they freed the rest of us. Robin threw 4 explosive birdlings that took out the containers containing our blood samples. During the commotion, we ran out of the chamber. We took a turn and ran towards the elevator. Genomorphs suddenly broke out of the pods dotting the hallway and we found ourselves surrounded. I didn't stop, augmenting my agility with air. I took a leap and at the apex of the jump, wind surrounded my form as my body twisted, a tornado sprung up, strong enough to push the huge Genomorphs out of the way, clearing the way enough for the others to take down the rest. Superboy, let's go. I shouted at the clone who was wrecking the Genomorph's shit. Don't give me orders. I rolled my eyes as he followed us. Aqualad forced open the elevator doors and we started going up. Robin and Kid Flash on a grapple gun and me bounding on the sides of the shaft. The others landed on the ledge of sublevel 15 while I was higher on sublevel 13. Robin looked up at me and shouted. Maelstrom, there's an elevator coming down. He shouted and I let loose an air bomb on the elevator doors, blasting them open and jumping in, narrowly missing the lift from crashing into me. And like that, I had successfully separated from the rest. I smiled. The good thing is that they didn't suspect anything. You might be wondering why sub-level 13 was special. The short answer? It was where the blockbuster formula was contained. The fight with Superboy from earlier showed me that despite my powers, I was essentially a glass cannon. He had taken me out of the fight in one hit. That needed to change. I couldn't wait for the Cobra Venom. The blockbuster formula was here and ready. I stepped into the hallway and ran forward, looking for anything distinctive. Luckily, most of their forces were looking for Robin and the others. I didn't have a lot of time though. Desmond would also walk in, looking to use the blockbuster to take us down. I made another turn and before me, written in bold were the words, Containment 13, Blockbuster. This marks the end of part 2 of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.